There's some reported issues with Bering Optics Super Yoter-R 50mm thermal optics in terms of not holding zero or point of impact shift, just unexplained movement of a grouping when folks are using those scopes.
Using for the zero repeatability test. Important factors here: you want to make everything as consistent and identical as possible. And so I've started with a paper diamond. You can barely see the red outline around the foil. And then I cut 2-inch foil squares and I affixed them with some blue painter's tape, and then I put duct tape over the blue painter's tape. And so every one of these is nearly identical, a 2-inch foil backer. And so you'll see here I have it listed. What I'll do is today I'll shoot an initial 0. That'll be in the middle. I won't ever shoot on there again. I plan to use the G2 profile of the Super Yoter. I'll write down what the left, right, up, down coordinates are, and we'll consider that locked in after that point. And then every time I come out subsequently from there, the cold bore shot will go in this upper left, the second shot will go here, the third shot will go here, and the fourth shot will go here. This is not a semi-auto. It's not feeding from a magazine. You're not running that round over the barrel extension and jamming it into the chamber with force. Pretty much just prints straight up 1-inch groups pretty easily. So, but the reason I'm doing cold bore or second, third, and fourth is because of the thermal aspect of your barrel heating up. And so if there's any stringing that's occurring, I want to try and see if it's consistent based on the round at which I am shooting out of the 4-shot group. All right, so that's the target. We'll get that down here in a little bit, but I do need to do a rough 0 at 100 with this system. I'll keep you updated.
Okay, so we're at the point of establishing that initial 0. Again, an Armalite AR-30 and 22-250, shooting Remington UMC 50 grain jacketed hollow point. In establishing the rough 0, because again this optic's new to this platform, I did have to take a few shots prior to what I'm going to do now, and that was just to get it close. I didn't want to dirty up that target that I made with a whole bunch of siders, so at the point that I felt comfortable with that rough 0, I went ahead and took 1 shot on that repeatability target, and it hit dead center of the target media. So now I'm going to take 3 more shots, and that will constitute the baseline 4-shot group to get us started with on this test. I'll go ahead and read off the coordinates that I settled on. So left and right is minus 0.13 yards, up and down is positive 0.09 yards. So not a whole lot of adjustment off where the factory zeroed this optic in its scope base during the manufacturing process. So it's pretty good work by Bering to get it lined up pretty accurately at the factory before shipping them out. I am shooting at 2 times magnification, so in essence it's 6 power, since the Super Yoter is a base 3 times native magnification. I'll go ahead and record in the scope. The reason I'm shooting at 2 times, here you see the native magnification, but if I bump it up to 2 times digital zoom, the foil backer outlines the green pip aiming point just perfectly, just so. So I'm able to, I feel as though I'm able to get a repeatable, solid point of aim at 2 times versus the 1 times. Okay, range is hot. recording off.
All right, so here's where we stop for the day. Put the coordinates there on left, right, up, down, G2 profile. Sort of right on with what I was getting with the day optic. The rifle and ammo is capable pretty consistently of an inch spread. So two separate little groups there within the four. Lesson learned, I had a steel target behind the paper target. I thought it was enough room, a couple feet there behind, but as that bullet impacted through the paper and hit the steel, all the fragments and shards came shooting through my meticulously built target, so I will have to do some repairs already. But it's good that these are renewable resources, right? Anyways, all right, that's enough for today. I'll update as we get along with the first 4-shot group on another day. All right, we're out here continuing our accuracy, repeatability, zero repeatability tests with a Super Yoter 50mm on top of an Armalite 22-250. This is day 2, if you will, grouping number 2. And so the first time we were out with the gun and the scope, we set up this target. We established our 4-shot baseline 0 right here. And then I had some damage occur from backsplash of steel behind. So I've made repairs to all the other target aiming points. Nice thing about this target setup is I just essentially have to overlay foil on the square that I want it in, and then I press the foil and it imprints through the foil where to put the tape so that these remain the same size and dimension as many times as you need them through the test. So just a little bit of a background there on why I do my target this way for this type of test. Okay, what I'm expecting to see today, or what I'd like to see, we had about 1.25 inch, 1.5 inch spread here in these 4 shots. Looks like 2 grouped here and then 2 grouped high. Acceptable for me today is anywhere within 1.5 inches of the center of these 2 groups. So I kind of have my pinky right here on the center. Anything within 1.5 inch radius of that. So that means I could be over here with my group today and I'd be fine with that. It could be up here, it could be down here, I could be over here. I'd be fine with that. And essentially that's because the gun and the ammunition and the scope, they've already baselined out at 1.5 inches. And so in terms of, I haven't removed the scope off the gun, it's just been sitting over there for a couple weeks now. But as long as I can keep the groupings, the point of impacts, 1.5 inches within the relative center of my baseline group, then I'm zeroed time. But that's the goal and intentions that I have. And then the batteries have not been in this scope for the last couple of weeks, so it's had no power supply to it. So the first thing I'll do is jump into the XY or the 0 coordinates, and I'll make sure nothing shifted from my original settings that I have written on the target over there. And so I think that's another good test. If the scope shows the same 0 settings, but there's a shift in impact, then one of the test parameters is, did the loss of power for a prolonged period affect that? I doubt it, but I'm out here doing what I can to bring reality to testing accuracy on these scopes. All right, so I'll walk down, I'll put that target at 100 yards, and then we'll take 4 shots and see where they map.
As I said, the scope has not been taken off the gun since our baseline 0. These are not return to 0 test on off, if you will. These are simply, is it retaining 0 over the course of many sessions of shooting. And left and right, minus 0.13 yards, up and down, positive 0.09 yards. So I'll verify that on my target to make sure they're the same. But that was no battery power to the scope for 2 weeks, and it maintained the 0 coordinates. All right. Powering onboard recording on. see, 2 of the foils really well and 2 not so much. But that just goes to show the variance across thermal hot hands, foil on any given day. It can add to the complexity of trying to repeat your 0 with maximum accuracy built in. So we may have to figure out what we're going to do about that target. Right now, 76 degrees. And 46% humidity. And I don't think that's going to work for our purpose today. So I went down and repositioned the target so that it's in full sun, gave it a slight tilt back. So let's take the scope out of standby and see if it's any improvement. It is, so we can continue with what we brung. Recording is back. Cold bore shot. Recording off. Okay, our cold bore, top left corner of the foil. Second shot, almost lower left. Third shot, dead center. Fourth shot, about 9 o'clock. So collectively speaking, across the 4 shots today, session 2, group 2 if you will, all are touching the foil and all would have been within a 1.5 inch radius of the center of that group. So no point of impact shift, 0 retained. Catch you on the 3rd session. 0 test. This will be day 3 or session 3. I'm going to go ahead and leave the previous impacts uncovered. I'll go ahead and get a marker and circle them in a particular color to indicate they were part of session 2. I'll go place the target down at 100 yards and we'll continue to shoot the 22-250 Armalite rifle. Again, scope has not come off the gun since we initially zeroed. Session 3, weather's about 48 degrees. Low wind, maybe a 5-mile-per-hour wind today. Started recording. The foil looks good downrange. Foil target media. It's going to be 4 shots with Remington jacketed hollow point 50 grain. So keeping everything the same for these 0 tests. Alright, I've been shooting at 2 times magnification right there. Day to that barrel. Last shot. Recording off. Alright, session 4. 4 more shots, having previously marked the other two groups from prior sessions. Same ammo. Alright, G2 profile. Left and right minus 0.13 yards, up and down 0.09 positive yards. So the scope's maintaining its settings. Session 4. 2 times magnification. Final shot. Recording off. Scope off.
Right, so after 4 separate shooting sessions, we're starting to get enough data here to make a summation on the zero of the Super Yoter-R 50mm and its ability to repeat or hold zero. Session 1 was all shot in the center, while we had 2 that were almost dead center and then 2 at the 11 o'clock position. They were within an 1.5 inch spread. And so, having set off to test groups 2, 3, and 4 on separate occasions and on separate aiming points, you know, whether coincidental or not, it seems like the second shot across all 3 days was sub-MOA, while we had, you know, other results that were not quite as consistent. All that to say this, in the majority of cases, I would say, let's see, if there's 3 shots per square, that's 12 shots total, with 1.5 falling outside of the foil target. None ventured past the center line towards the right, so everything consistently was left of center. And then 11, 9, or 7 o'clock positions, and all within the 1.5 inch spread that the load and the rifle seemed to shoot. So I think this just proves that, you know, the Super Yoter can hold zero, does hold zero.
Okay, so the Super Yoter unit that we have, again, 50mm lens, 12 micron thermal sensor. It has the LaRue mount on it. And if you'll allow me to, I'll just give you a little bit of my superstitions with mounts, right? So you get your Bering optic scope, you get it out of the box, you put it on your rail, it seems tight enough, and you go on about your day. That might work for some, but it's probably not optimal if you want repeatable accuracy and consistency. So the way I treat every scope, regardless of manufacturer, but the way I treat my thermal optics that I get from Bering is I'll go ahead and get the mount and I will test fit it on a rifle. The rifle I'm going to be using back here is an Armalite 22-250 bolt action single feed gun with a steel rail, scope rail on top. So I can tell you I've already taken this unit on and off. I have adjusted the adjustment nut on the bottom. It's toolless. It's essentially just you spin it. Tight is clockwise, loose is counterclockwise. And there's a limited amount of revolutions there. It's about 30 clicks or 30 different settings for tension. So having played with it already, I found out what is the best tension that I have for this optic on that rifle. Don't go crazy, don't have to mallet it on and mallet it off or use tools. This should be something that you can press on with your thumb with some force and then get off with your index finger with moderate effort. I mean, there are rails out there that are made with aluminum, and that's to keep rifles lightweight, or they're just aftermarket parts. And so if you're using aluminum rails, you got to be real cautious about over tensioning your scope mount onto the rail, because you can malform it, and then you'll have consistency, repeatability issues with your shooting. All right, so once I found the tension that I wanted, I marked on this actual Super Yoter a mark on the rotating piece, the rotating ear, to the base and metal here. So I know exactly where I need to set it. That's important, because what I do, again, superstitions and whatever you want to call them, but what I do when I get ready to put this on and get serious about zeroing the gun and shooting with it, is I go ahead and season the mount. And what that means is I will take the nut all the way to counterclockwise hard stop. Then I will take it all the way to full clockwise, full tension, hard stop. And I will do this 3 times. Counterclockwise, stop, clockwise, stop, counterclockwise, stop. Why am I doing that? I mean, this is a mechanical item. It's subject and prone to settling, or as you make your adjustments, you want it to settle in nicely and not have a half step of a detent that it may be on, or there's just variables within the mechanics of it that a layman as myself has trouble explaining it, but I, over the course of time of using these items, have found what seems to work for me for consistency and repeatability. So right now I'm at counterclockwise all the way. Now that I have a visual marker, I'm going to go ahead and go up and line those 2 items up, such as that. Then I'm going to go to the rifle, and you want to hit the same slot within your rifle rail every time. If you're too far forward or too far back, it will change your point of impact. So if you're taking your scope on and off, make sure you mark the rail. Sometimes I'll put a white out on the rail, so it's a visual indicator of which rail I need to put the index of the LaRue mount, which is on the front, the index key there, into. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gives me the proper eye relief on this rifle. Place it on there. I don't know if you can hear that, but I'm rocking it till it hits the front and back of that rail slot. I push forward. I always give it a forward push, and then I bring the throw lever back to the locked position. I do this 3 times. So off with the tension, fully forward with the quick release lever, back on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Rattle, push forward, tension. It's 2. Off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And before I put it on there, again, reason I'm doing this, there could be buildup or things that we just can't see on these mating surfaces. I mean, that is a polished edge. It has a contour to it, just the way that LaRue has designed these mounts. I'm not saying you have to do this. I'm just saying that if I'm seasoning the mount and doing these repeated tensions and on-off situations, what I'm attempting to do is wear off any burrs, grit, grime, or anything that might have gotten into the mechanism that I wasn't aware of. Whether that be stuff it picked up from shipping or whether it be from my own shop, I'm just attempting to rule out variables and get the mechanics to function as designed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is the 3rd time on and off, pressing forward and tensioned.